The Mastering Local Marketing podcast helps local small business owners like you understand what it takes to successfully market your business and drive new customers through your doors. We provide actionable insights, interview leading experts and business owners in various industries, as well as provide tips and tricks we've uncovered over the last 25 years in the field. Whether you're starting your business or you've been at it for decades, let us provide you with the education and resources you need to grow your customer base. It's time to start mastering your local marketing. Here's your host, Matt Hansen.
Hey, this is Matt Hansen with the Mastering Local Marketing Podcast, and I am here with Brittany Downey, who is the owner of DOWNEY'S Strategy and a minimalist marketer. I cannot wait to have a conversation today. Brittany, how are you today? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
So good. So good. Yeah. So I'm into minimalist marketing, not necessarily because I'm a minimalist. I'm more of a maximalist, but, just having been in a lot of different roles in marketing, I finally kind of got fed up with all the bloat and all the extra that we're doing. So, didn't get trained in marketing at the university, actually started out work in the music world, in a symphony, and, learned marketing on the job, started my next job after that, and the manager came over and, stacked a huge pile of books on my desk and said, "Hey, read this." And that was where I got my first major marketing education, doing that and on the job, and it was great. So I've worked in-house for some companies. I've worked at an agency. Finally went out on my own doing marketing consulting and copywriting. But I experienced sort of a shift when I moved to my own business, because previously I'd been doing marketing for a lot of other companies, and that was my everyday role. And I didn't really, I didn't have to market my own brand. I was just marketing these other brands. All of a sudden, when I had to market my own small business, I froze. Like, I knew all the techniques. I knew what I should do. I run ads on all sorts of platforms. I've done all sorts of events. And I was just like, why can't I get myself to do the things that I know how to do? And that's where I really dove into, to habits and to my motivation and why am I doing certain things this way, and really landed on the fact that in order for this to actually work for me, I needed it to be minimalist. And I found out a lot of my clients also needed that to be minimalist a little bit more than it was before. So previously, I would want to give them long, strategic, really smart sounding documents because I felt like that was more worth their money, and they would respect me more if I gave them all this stuff to do and all these strategic plans. Not to say that strategy isn't important, but what I really came across was business owners were just looking for something that they could access, that they could actually get done, not this big theoretical marketing plan. So that's how I got into minimalist marketing. Just because I needed to experience it for myself, and then found out that it was something that other people needed as well.
I think we're so busy in our daily lives. We don't need this long list of things that we need to go out there and do and spend hours and hours on it. I've seen this very similar strategies through the years where you start to work with different companies, or you're working for a company, and they're just doing things to do them, right? And
yes.
There's really no value in it. And when you stop and you kind of pull back and you say, okay, we're doing these 50 things. If you could cut out 47 of them, what would they be? What are the ones that are best use of our time, making us the most money, that make a difference? And I don't think people stop and think about that. I'm a minimalist at best, right? That's just who I am. I like to remain lean when it comes to a variety of things, but I think people think more is better. And what you're saying, and what I agree with, I'm going to full 100% say I agree with this, is stick with what works and put effort toward things that are going to make a difference, instead of just spreading yourself so thin that you are spending time on things that really just don't matter.
Absolutely. And I think the other important element that marketers really don't think about, and it's funny because marketers think about this when they're trying to market to people. They think about behavior, user behavior, and psychology, but we also don't think about our own behavior and our own psychology when we're planning these things out. So yes, we need to do, first of all, what's going to work, but there's a lot of things that could work. What's going to work for us? And that's a lot about of what minimalism is about is figuring out, okay, there's a lot of things that work for a lot of different people, but what's going to work for us? And to do that, you really have to lean into what you are going to actually want to do, what you're good at doing. Sometimes it means delegating to somebody else, to do something that works. But really, overall, you're not actually going to get the results if you are dreading doing it all the time. You're not very good at it. You never really build the skills behind it. So like the impact is super important, but your own behavior and your own design is so important in that as well.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with some businesses a while back, and we were talking about focusing on one thing that you can do really well and learn that first. And then if you're going to move on to a bunch of other things, then move, right? But everyone does everything. They're not a master at any of it. They're just reacting. There's no thought process putting into it. And I think that's really an interesting point, that we all think we're doing these wonderful things by being everywhere, but we're actually doing a disservice to ourselves because we're not becoming an expert in one. And that expert in one can actually lead you to better results than trying to be everywhere all at once.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and people catch the vibe too of what you're doing. If you don't enjoy it, that it's going to show. But if you really are enjoying doing the thing, whether that's even just networking or if you really enjoy posting on a certain social platform, that's magnetic, and people do gravitate toward that.
Yeah. So there are really kind of three things that you focus on, and I want to bring those to the forefront here. We've got positioning, presence, and pathway. So let's talk about positioning first. How do you address that with your clients? Give me kind of the backstory there.
Yeah. So most people come to me with some sort of surface level problem. And so it's like, Brittany, I need a website. Our website's bad. Or we're trying to figure out what marketing channels we should use. Which ones should we use? And I might ask them, who do you serve? What's it all about? What makes you different? What makes you unique? And a lot of the times people can't answer that foundational question, or they can't answer it in a way that's resonating with their audience. So positioning is really all about who you are, who you help, and why it really matters. And there's so many different ways people like to do positioning, and they tend to just overcomplicate things sometimes. But honestly, if you can even just answer some of those questions, you're so much further ahead than a lot of organizations, which are just kind of running around with words like seamless or we have integrity. Really getting to the heart of what your people want and figuring out how can you talk about it in a way that's going to connect with those people. Because if you say we serve everybody and we offer everything, you're really going to resonate with no one. So that's really the foundation, and something I think people often skip over. And there are different things that are part of positioning. Some of it's brand messaging. Sometimes it's creating like a brand identity to resonate with people, but it's all about that visual and that verbal communication of who you are and how you can connect to something that people care about.
Yeah. I love the positioning of I'm the best kept secret in town, right? Don't use that.
Oh, yeah.
That's a bad one. But, we look at positioning and we have to understand what is the value to our customers? What are we presenting that nobody else is doing? And we just did an episode, it'll come out after this one, but we were talking about how you can look at what your competitors are doing online and the positioning, and how you can kind of look at their meta ads, you can look at their paid search ads, you can look at their landing pages, or sign up for their emails and all this other stuff. But you start to see how they're positioning themselves and look for the gaps in the market, right? So if you're saying that you're targeting everyone, you're not doing a good job. There are people out there that will respond to your messaging and your offers and your products, your services a lot faster than some of the other people, right? So if I'm selling services, we're right outside Chicago, right over the border in Indiana. If I'm selling services here, but they're not digital components, you have to come in and see me and all those types of things. I have to get on a plane and go see you, or you have to come to me, right?
Right.
People in San Diego or New York, they're not necessarily my customers. So when you say everyone, it truly isn't everyone. And even when you get down to that basic level in the town, the city that you're in, again, it's not everyone. Everyone has their own needs and wants and demands and all those types of things. But you got to realize, like, you got to get really finite when it comes to who you're going after. And that, to me, is the number one thing. I think you're spot on with that you've got to understand that before you do anything else. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah. And I think one place that local businesses can also get kind of caught up into is just that, oftentimes similar businesses in that same area are offering the same value to the same audience. So then it gets tricky because you're like, what message do we actually focus on? And I think one of the kind of the best tricks that some local businesses can use is to focus on the way that you do things, how the process is different, how the approach is different, really kind of digging into that unique mechanism behind what it is that you offer and how you can offer it in a different way than other organizations, because you might be solving some of the same problems as the other practice down the street, but the way that you're going to do it is unique. And so focusing on that has been also, I think, a helpful thing for local businesses.
Definitely. All right, so let's jump out of positioning and we go over to presence. What do you mean by presence?
Presence is how people come to experience you and your brand and take that next step. So for a lot of businesses, this is their website. But then there's also a lot of brick and mortar businesses, and this is also your physical presence as well. And I think that oftentimes after people do that positioning or that brand identity work, it kind of stays there and it doesn't really move on. Sometimes it moves on to the website and you kind of message it on the website, but oftentimes it doesn't really play out in the physical spaces that you're in either. So making sure that positioning is really just clear on your website and clear in the physical location that you have is so important to keep that consistency. It's really where your positioning shows up. And it's especially important to keep that minimalist approach when it comes to websites, because oftentimes what I see is just anything that hasn't gotten hammered out in positioning makes its way back up onto the website. And either the website's a ghost town because you haven't touched it, or it is just stuffed with tons and tons of stuff. And if you have your positioning really clear, the website is actually not as hard as you might think, because you have that messaging clarity. So oftentimes when people come to me with what they think is a website problem, it's not usually a website problem, it's a positioning problem, and they haven't gotten that clear. So once that positioning is clear, it's really a matter of transferring it to your website and making sure that it also reflects in the vibe and the welcoming nature of your space.
Boy, I could use that on a variety of my clients. When you sit down with them and you start talking about who you're going after, and then you look at the website and it's almost like they took a theme and just duplicated it and changed a few words. But, we're all learning here, and that's the whole point of the podcast, is really kind of learning what you can do. And I think you're spot on. We start with a positioning, and then we don't actually transfer it to the messaging, the website, and the ads, and whatever else that we're doing on social. It gets really vague really quick, and it's almost like we did an exercise. Okay, that's over. Let's just get back to what we were doing before. And that's not the way. You've got to carry it all the way forward. So the third and last part of this, we've got kind of these 3 Ps that you talk about. So we've gone through positioning, presence, and then you have pathways. What do we mean by pathways?
Okay, so pathways is where I get the most excited, and I've also gotten the most overwhelmed, because it doesn't matter if you've got great positioning and a great website or a great location, you've got to get people to your business. Otherwise, none of that other stuff matters. Obviously, it matters immensely, but if you can't get people to your business, then all the other work is, for nothing. So I think one of the things that's super overwhelming is how many options there are these days for getting people to your business. And anybody can just put into ChatGPT, hey, give me a marketing plan, and let's go with it. But what actually really ends up happening is what I call the marketing wobble. And you can kind of imagine it just like a wavy line, and you kind of start at the beginning. You're like, we've got to do some marketing. We need to get more business in, and you ramp up. You're feeling good. You've got some stuff out, Maybe you posted on social a couple times, and then you're like, we're doing marketing, and then things get crazy busy. Everybody gets overwhelmed. You drop down to almost zero marketing. And then things get hard again. You're thinking, okay, we need more business. We need more clients, more people walking through the door. Got to do marketing again. And you ramp it back up. Same thing happens, falls back down, and it's crickets, right? So, you could have this great marketing plan that ChatGPT spit out for you. Awesome. It's probably, based off of some best practices that it gleaned from, some people on the internet, but you're missing something. So the way that I like to help my clients figure out what marketing to focus on to kind of keep as their consistent baseline consists of three things. First is your goals. So, get more business isn't really a very defined goal. What kind of business? What's the frequency? Is it, do you want recurring clients? Do you want to build your business out in this particular niche? You really have to get more specific about what those goals are in order to know what marketing activities are going to work for you. And when I say marketing activities too, for smaller businesses, there's a big blurry line between sales and marketing, in-person connection, relationships, networking, all of that I kind of consider a marketing or a growth activity, right? Like it all takes your bandwidth. It all takes time for you to manage, and it's all about getting people in the door. So what's your goal? Specifically, what are you trying to achieve? The second piece is the impact of the activities on those goals. So you might be trying to get a really busy, high income clientele, and you're posting on like coupons in the local flyer. Something that really busy people are probably not flipping through trying to figure out what the coupons are. The impact on the goal is not great. Whereas networking at a local business convention may actually provide quite a bit of impact toward that goal. So the impact on the goal is huge. A lot of people just do things without realizing what is the impact towards the actual specific goal that I have. But then the last piece, and we talked about this a little bit, is that behavioral piece. And I think the big question is, do I want to do it? Or can I get somebody else who can do it for me if I don't want to do it? Because if you ultimately just don't want to do it, then when things get busy, and the whole marketing drops, all of a sudden you have no desire to do the thing, and you have no time to do the thing, and it's not going to get done. And so I think being super realistic about that is so important for people, whether it's delegating things, whether it's making the thing easier and more appealing to do, that's also an option. But you have to get that behavioral component in there before you can actually experience any really consistent behavior.
Wow. Yeah, 100%, right? So I find myself even doing this at times, and, I kind of sit back and go, why am I still doing this? And it just shows that it's human behavior. It's what we do. We get busy, and when times are busy, and when things are slow, we have a tendency to spend more time on things. It's interesting though, because people ask me all the time, how do you do what you do in a variety of different industries and things like that? And I always tell them it comes down to systems. It comes down to things that I understand. What you're basically saying is, if you hate it, you're going to drop the ball. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important, because there are a variety of things that I do on a daily basis that I look at. I'm like, why am I doing this? And I start to hire it out or find somebody else to do it. And then I sit there and go, oh, great. Okay, I don't have to do that anymore. So unfortunately, human beings, it's never going to change. So the way that you look at it, though, is if you don't like doing it, don't go into it thinking that you're going to be consistent. Think about it and say, okay, I hate doing this. What is the easiest way for me to get this off my plate? However, before I ask that, I have to understand, is it going to make a difference? Right? So by doing this, is this actually going to bring me more business? Is it going to bring me more customers? Are people going to walk through the door? Are they going to call me? All those types of things. So I think that's a really interesting way to look at a minimalist way to look at things, but I love it. So you go through this and you have a variety of different clients that you work with. Can you give me kind of a rough case study. I don't want you to have to necessarily call anybody out or anything, but can you give me a little bit of a case study of how this has worked for somebody that you've worked with?
Yeah. So I worked with a small website design agency on this, and their whole team, it was a small company, their whole team joined, and we worked through this workshop of, what's the goal? What's the impact? What do you guys want to do? And they were, like a lot of local businesses, they got a lot of business because they were really good at doing stuff, not necessarily because they had a lot of marketing plans in place. So, people love them and they refer them, and people are just coming back to them. And so they haven't really had to do a lot of marketing, but they wanted to do a little bit more marketing. And so we sat down and started to identify where they were kind of leaking time and where they could really lean in and actually make some progress. And it turns out, once we actually started mapping some of these things out, some of the things that could have gotten them the most leverage and were actually things that they really enjoyed doing, including updating their own website, were things that there were just like little blocks in the way that were behavioral. They were just small things that they didn't even realize were blocking them from making this big progress. And they were doing a lot of other things that didn't make as much sense, like blogging, for example. They didn't really need to blog to get clients because they already had clients coming through a lot of other ways. So we identified that, and what actually ended up happening was not only did they start doing these things that were important, is it actually helped them gain momentum, and they actually did more than what they had identified before. And so that's also the thing that I think can happen too, is sometimes it feels stupid when you have a really simple plan. In the first couple times I created minimalist marketing plans, I was like, this is crazy. Like nobody's going to respect me for this. But actually, when you can make it super, super simple and just take that first step, often what happens is way more momentum and way more motion, and you actually often end up doing beyond what you did. And even if you don't do beyond what you did, I think normalizing the fact that you can't do everything and you don't have to do everything is really important, and that you can feel accomplished just by doing the things that you identified as your top priorities.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% on that. So, hey, I know we got to wrap things up. I know we try to keep it to roughly 18 to 22 minutes, but it has been an absolute pleasure. Where can people find more about you, learn about your business?
Yeah, you can go to DOWNEY'sstrategy.com. You can also follow me, Brittany Downey, on LinkedIn, or check out my podcast, Do Less Marketing, on Apple or Spotify.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for being with us today. I appreciate your time. I love the minimalist mindset on this, but thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Fall is all about cozy comforts, but when you're prioritizing your health, it's easy to feel like you're missing out. With Hero Bread, you can enjoy all your fall favorites because they're made with Hero Bread sliced bread loaves, tortillas, bagels, dinner rolls, and more. Try their all-new Hero Noodles with 12 grams of protein and just 80 calories. So skip replacing every carb with cauliflower and indulge in your breakfast, lunch, and dinner time favorites while still hitting your goals. From breakfast bagels and meal prepped enchiladas to mouth-watering burgers and cheesy noodles. You won't believe Hero Bread's options have 0 to 5 grams net carbs and are high fiber from the taste and texture. They've even got small batch drops of indulgent favorites like the popular Hero Croissant. And right now, Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code FALL25 at checkout. That's fall25 at hero.co. All figures are per serving of Hero Bread. Contains 2 to 18 grams of fat per serving. See the product nutrition panels on hero.co for more information.